All right. Hello and welcome to Free the Truth News. I'm Jennifer Justice, and today I have with me Melanie Joseph, who recently lost visitation rights with her son over a Facebook post in which she was not wearing a mask in public. She's currently trying to fight for those rights back, but the judge seems very adamant about his position when it comes to safety during the pandemic. It seems like he's just trying to punish her over this Facebook post. And this isn't the first time that he has revoked somebody's parental rights over this mask issue. So tell me, to me, this seems completely unbelievable that over one post where you weren't wearing a mask, they can then try and revoke any of your parental rights or withhold visitation rights with your son. It just seems completely unbelievable to me that they can even do that. Did you ever think that something as simple as like masking or just a simple Facebook post would give them grounds to deny you access to your son?
No, if I would have thought that, I would have never even used Facebook. I mean, Facebook is a platform for me to have a relationship with friends and family that aren't in my circle 24/7 with my family, like I have friends all over the country. So I never imagined that a picture of me would cause me to lose my son indefinitely, because the ruling is an indefinite ruling that I still haven't been able to process.
It's crazy. In a little bit, I'm going to show a clip. It's a soundbite of them making that ruling. But before we get to that, they were just going off that one Facebook post, right?
Yes.
And the Facebook post, I believe you told me earlier that you actually made that post. I have a screenshot of it with the date, and I'll flash that on the screen. So that was on June 18th. The mask mandates it happened after the fact, right? So they hadn't even mandated the masks yet. Can you tell me a little bit of, when they were making these wild accusations that you're anti-mask and you're putting your son at risk, how did this go down? Did they allow you to defend yourself when it came to that, or?
No, not at all. So I took this picture while I was sitting in an appointment waiting for an oral surgery. And I mean, if you think about it, you're in a dentist's office. You're not going to wear a mask while you're in a dentist's office because they have to go in your mouth. So in hindsight, I was just, being me. I have a personality. So I just, took a little selfie of me in the dentist's office. And my quote is what got me in trouble, because I said no mask for this girl, but in parentheses I said that I was in my oral surgery appointment. And it wasn't to be snarky, it was just that I was getting a break. I mean, wearing that mask is a lot, but I did let the judge know that I followed the CDC guidelines and that I was alone in that picture. I haven't seen my son in 6 months. So I've been working on getting a trial for 6 months. His father made a decision to keep him from me when COVID began. So I'm being ostracized for a picture while I'm alone in an oral surgeon's office, which is all sense of wrong. Yeah. There's just nothing in there that is logical in his decision.
Also in that post, because they spent a good deal of time tearing you apart just for that one Facebook post, you're pictured with a sidearm, and they tore you apart for that as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So in the state of North Carolina, it's open carry, and I also have a concealed permit to conceal, if I choose to do so. However, in that circumstance, I chose to open carry. I like being able to make that decision. I like being able to have the freedom to do such thing, because it's a big deal when you can have a concealed carry. That means that the FBI and everybody else cleared you, showing that you're not a criminal and that you are trusted to carry such a dangerous weapon 24/7, right?
Right.
And I was torn apart for that too. I was questioned with my decision making. Yet the reality is that there's a lot going on around us. And whether I'm by myself or with my children, I like knowing that I am able to defend myself in the event that something does happen, especially because I have been a victim before. And for example, with my son's father, I was a victim many times. And because of that experience, I've learned how to defend myself in more than one way, through martial arts, through taking classes with protecting myself using a firearm, with many different measures, which would make sense, right? Because when a woman has been violated in many ways, then she makes decisions to always have a chance to fight back in that situation if she's put in it again.
Yeah, and it's completely within your rights to do that, to own a firearm. You went through all the proper channels. You had an LTC, and so there was no reason for them to tear you apart for that. They had no reason to believe that you were an irresponsible gun owner. You have no criminal record. So the fact that they would tear you apart for that tells me that, like, they're stripping our rights little by little, and they always start with those who are in custody battles or people who aren't citizens. Like, they find the weak links that they can pick on, but once they set that precedence, they can then push those ideas and those standards on everybody else.
Absolutely.
And so this is something we really pay attention to, because the fact that they can say you weren't wearing a mask, so you don't deserve your children. I mean, that's scary that they can do that. Or they can say, oh, you're carrying a firearm legally, you don't deserve your children. That's crazy. That's crazy that they can even say that.
Well, he just, he went as far as to tell me specifically, and you'll hear it, I have the audacity to post on Facebook a picture without a mask. And then he labels me an anti-masker. Never once did I say I'm anti-mask. Never once did I indicate that in my picture. And I certainly told the judge that I follow the guidelines, and he never gave me an opportunity. He never even said to me, Miss Joseph, when you are with your son, are you going to take the precautionaries necessary to protect him from COVID? He never discussed it with me. He just punished me because of his own perspective, his own personal issues, his own measures of punishing those that are not in his own specific belief system, because he made it clear to me that was what this was about.
Yeah, that's crazy. You know what? I'm going to throw that clip in there real quick just so that they can hear what the judge had to say. So let's take a listen.
I believe that your client poses a danger to the child. She's first of all, her credibility is very low. I don't believe a lot of what she testified to. She's one of these anti-mask people, and she's got the audacity to put that on social media that she's an anti-mask people, and to expose the child to a flight to North Carolina and risk the child's health over that is not acceptable to me. The 7-hour meet in the middle is not acceptable either. The mother took it upon herself, in violation of the relocation statute, to just pick up and move, because it talks about a parent moving, not a child moving, and she needed to file the relocation. She didn't do it. If she wants to see the child, she's coming to Broward County. She's going to wear a mask. She really should be quarantined before she sees the child, but she's going to have to be supervised, because I don't trust that she's not going to wear a mask. The social media picture of her with the gun is very disturbing. This whole thing is disturbing, and the father shouldn't be inconvenienced by the mother's actions. So I have no problem with the child speaking to the mother on video every night for 10 minutes. They could set up a convenient time, 7, 7:30, 8, whatever they pick. That's fine. If the mother wants in-person time sharing, it's going to be in Broward County. She's going to come down, and she's going to pay for a supervisor, and she's going to wear a mask. And if she doesn't, the time sharing is just not going to happen. When this pandemic is over, and there's no cases, and there's a vaccine, and there's proof well, the father will get a vaccine for the child, but the mother's going to need to get a vaccine as well. And when I have proof that everybody's safe and the child's not at risk of danger, then we could talk about, a long-distance parenting plan. But right now, her time sharing suspended. Does that resolve your contempt motion?
Oh, he ends it by saying that my rights have been suspended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
All right, here.
if I don't like his rules and I don't get this COVID, my rights are suspended. So that's saying indefinitely I don't get to see my son again. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they even added in there that when the vaccine becomes available, you will not be able to regain your rights unless you get the vaccine. So basically, they are making medical decisions on your behalf. And I mean, we could sit here and talk all day about vaccines, but when it comes to this particular vaccine, there is nobody trusts this vaccine. Nobody. It's not been properly tested. They're rushing it through all of the protocols and the safety trials. It's the first of its kind RNA vaccine. And so nobody trusts this thing. And they're already trying to force it onto people. They're trying to strong arm you by holding your son hostage. That's not right.
Absolutely. And he's overstepping his bounds. He's taking a hypothetical into judgment, right? Because we don't know when and if this vaccine will be available. We don't know, because the other stipulation he put in there is COVID has to be gone and there can't be any more cases. And you and I both know the flu isn't gone and there's cases. So a virus that is behaving in a similar manner may or may not disappear. So he's not only saying that I have to get this vaccine, that COVID has to be gone off the map. And then to tell me that I have to have something that's being developed at warp speed, right? Not something that usually takes 8 to 10 years and has been tested and thoroughly monitored and going through specific programs. No, I have to take something at warp speed to see my son again under supervision with the mask after I quarantine for 14 days. And what is this for? This is a punishment because of his perception, because this picture was never entered into evidence. This was all hearsay. This was all a conversation. And honestly, I never saw the judge, so I don't even know what the judge even saw, because like how you and I see each other and we're having eye contact, the judge was showing a picture.
Yeah.
So when he,
I'm gonna actually throw his picture up there real quick so people can see. What's his name again? I totally forgot.
So his name is Dale Cohen.
Dale Cohen.
Wait, did I do it wrong? Yeah, Judge Dale Cohen. And he's in Broward County. And there's another family, and the docket, I sent that over to you too, if you want to put that up there. He took a 15-month-old baby away from its mother because the ex-husband snapped a picture of her on the beach without a mask on. And
I cannot even imagine, like, ripping away a 15-month-old little girl from their mother over a mask issue when they were outside, even outside.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. And these, what a lot of people don't understand is that these mask mandates, they're not law. There's no penal code for not wearing a mask in any state. These are ordinances from the governor, which do not count as law. They're basically just recommendations. And so this is a total overstep. They should not be able to step in and say, that we're revoking any of your rights because you're not following recommendations. That's crazy.
Well, let's not forget this too, right? Our president, each time our president conversates about the mask, he says, if you're unable to social distance, right? Please wear the mask, right? I was by myself. In the waiting room. So wouldn't that be considered social distancing?
Right.
Wouldn't that be considered that I'm not, and the judge calls me a threat, he calls me dangerous, he calls me an anti-masker, he's calling me all these names based on a picture that he didn't see, and he terminated my rights, and I had already been fighting to see my son for a good 6 months as it was, right? And I didn't get to physically see my son during this whole time frame. Imagine as a mother wanting to hold my son and comfort my son, knowing that he's scared because these children are being introduced into a new world as we adults are, right? So I'm imagining what's going through his head when he's having to wear a mask, or he's having to be in environments where everyone's wearing a mask. You kind of feel like you're in another world. And
Yeah.
so,
But it feels like walking around in the Twilight Zone. I swear, I'm in a blue state. They have a lot of really strong mandates, and everywhere you go, even outside, you see people wearing masks. Everyone's social distancing. When you go to the park, you hear parents saying, "Don't get too close to the other kids." It's just bizarre. It's totally unnatural, and I can't imagine how it's making kids feel. I mean, because they can't even be kids with all this.
exactly. And that's why my heart's been so heavy, not being able to physically comfort my son. And I haven't really been allowed to talk to my son. The additional sentence, as I call it, is I can talk to him for 10 minutes a day. So I'm such a threat that talking to him is limited to 10 minutes a day. And it's just like, I'm doing everything I can right now not to let the tears start to flow. But it's enough to physically not be able to touch your son, but then not even being able to like see his face for more than 10 minutes. Imagine he's got siblings that want to talk to him. How are we all going to have a conversation in 10 minutes?
Yeah, that is, oh my God, I am so sorry. So but how is he feeling about this? I'm going to let you gather your composure first, but
Right.
that's okay. It's totally understandable. I mean, God, I would be a mess on the floor right now if I was in your position. I can't even.
I've spent a lot of time there, honestly. I've had to figure out like at least getting a meal in, because I have to keep my composure. I have a husband, I have children, but it's been very difficult because a big part of my life has been missing for a long time, and then to learn that it's going to be indefinite, really, because from what I gather, he's been withholding final judgments so that an appeal can't take place. And this is just lawyer talk. This is just me, researching just like everybody else, what he's doing and what he's done. And if that's the case, how am I supposed to turn this around? How am I supposed to physically see my son when I attempted last and I got the police involved? Because in the state of Florida, it's against the law. There's actually a Florida statute, and I don't have that off the top of my head right now and I could send that to you, but there's a Florida statute that states that when a parent interferes with time sharing, that it's a felony. It's against the law.
Right, and he had been withholding your son from you even before the pandemic, correct?
Just as it started, like just as they started to say schools are closing down and whatnot, is when that was when he kept him, because it was my spring break. I was supposed to take him with me to where we are so that he could have that transitional period of, okay, we're moving, this is what it looks like, this is exciting. But I never got that opportunity. And then I was going to bring him back to his father's for our summer share, because I had full custody of my son. I'll just lay it out there. I had full custody of my son. This is a man that raped me and has pushed his weight around, literally, and he has always been able to strong arm me. And he put me through years of stalking and trying to infringe on my now marriage of 13 years, and just really used his how to explain it, like he could sit outside my house and take pictures and the police wouldn't do anything because I had a child with him, so it's public property. So he was able to use the fact that we had a child together to gratify his behavior. I don't know, like it was a very difficult situation to be in. And so I, over the years, was being worn down by him constantly taking me to court and doing depositions and causing me health problems meaning that I was expecting a baby and I had a miscarriage because of the constant behavior from his father. So we have a timeshare plan that is very limited, if you will. I get my son in the summer, I get him in spring break, long weekends, holidays. So when I have spring break coming up, that's a huge deal. That's something that we really look forward to, that we plan as a family. So when we didn't have that time, it was heartbreaking. And then to turn it around, I went down to Florida again. I went down there about 3 times and I drove 15 hours to, exercise my timeshare. I wasn't able to get my son, so I involved the police. And the police said to me that you have a case, it's missing persons. We're going to bring it to the state attorney's office. And after they advised me to go to the house with the police escort to try and have him freely give up my son, that's when they changed everything. They talked with the father, and whatever the father said, they turned it off, and they dropped their case, and they told me it was a civil matter and I had to wait for the judge.
Wow. I don't know if he's paying people off or if he has connections, but it doesn't make sense to me. None of this makes sense to me. But so how is your son feeling in all this? Does he want to see you?
He misses me. He wants to see me. He's my son, how could he not? He's scared of the repercussions. He's scared of his father if he puts too much weight on it. So he is just complacent. It is what it is. And that's what I know. I haven't spoken to him in a few days because I haven't really been able to bring myself to have this conversation with him yet. I'm actually quite hopeful that this will be overturned very quickly so that we can have a family reunion, because he's got siblings, and my husband's his stepfather of 13 years. So that's a child to him.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I want to backtrack a little bit, because there was a whole bunch of other stuff they tried to throw at you, and they were all lies in this court case to try and discredit you. And one of the things was about, you moved a couple of times, and they were trying to say that, I don't know the legal speak. You're going to have to tell me about that.
So over the years, because of the constant court battles, my husband and I weren't able to buy a house when we got married. We had to use our funds and our 401 and our assets and whatever we had to fight the battle of court with my son's father. So we rented, and we would move into a rental, and when that rental expired, we would move again, because sometimes rentals didn't allow you to renew your lease, or maybe we wanted a better house, or maybe we wanted a bigger house, or maybe we wanted a better school system, which renting gives you that ability to do, because you learn where you want to live, which is what I'm doing right now in the state that I'm in. I didn't buy a house right away because I want to make sure where I'm going to buy is where I want to stay put. So that was in the beginning. That was over 8 years ago, I would have to say, because the house that we just sold in Florida, we were there for 3 years. And the house that we were in before that we owned, we were in for a couple of years. So it slowed down, but the moving was really so that we could upgrade, because the last house that I was in was a 5-bedroom with a screened-in pool on a cul-de-sac over a canal. Every mother's dream, a place where your children can have the freedom and the mother can have the peace that when they're playing out front, they're in a safe neighborhood and you're not worried about busy streets. So the father also has moved quite a bit, and he's also been married and divorced he's been remarried 2 times since he made our situation, I guess is the easiest way to put it. He's had 2 children since then. He has moved around quite a bit as well. And he's moved my son from school to school to school, which is what he implied I did. So I sold my house.
Because that makes no sense. Because if he has custody rights, and he's the one moving around, how is it that you're switching his school around? You only have visitation.
This was before he gained those custody rights. However, my son was 7 years old, so you got to consider VPK is at one school, kindergarten's at another school, and then I was working on getting him into a really good charter. So I was doing my job as a parent to get my son into a really good school. The other reason I had to move my son into another school is because the father would show up where my two children were in a school together, his son and my daughter, and have lunch with my son and harass my daughter. So I had to split the school so that he could no longer have the privilege to do such a thing, because he used my son as a reason, as a pawn. So he moved around a lot until he bought his first home, and that was in Coral Springs, I believe. No, let me strike that. He was renting, and we had an agreement in the same county, and then he bought a house out of the county. So he moved further away from me after I moved closer to him. So I sold my house, retained my attorney, moved closer to him. He then moved further away from me out of the county. And then from there, my visitation changed because he wanted to make it harder for me to get my son where he needed to be on time. Because I can't get him to school on time if he's 45 minutes from me, for example.
Something that's interesting to note about all the moves is that every single time that you moved, you filed the appropriate paperwork, the appropriate, what's the legal speak there?
Well, right now it's called a relocation because I relocated out of the state. But prior to that, I didn't have to petition the court because I was moving closer to Dad. But right. Dad was moving out of bounds, and he only petitioned the courts after I said, no, I don't agree with you moving. But he already did it. He bought the house, and then he petitioned the court. So technically, he broke it, right?
So here you have his attorney tearing you to shreds for all the times that you moved, but you never did a single thing wrong against your agreement by making those moves. And here he is. They didn't even mention the fact that he'd been moving around out of bounds from where he wasn't supposed to be without petitioning the courts. Let's not focus on that. No, we're gonna tear you apart for the fact that you moved several times to be closer to your son and make it easier on everybody. It's just the hypocrisy is really frustrating, and the fact that they're able to get away with that, and they wouldn't even allow you the ability to defend yourself. I think
Well, he moved again. Actually, he just moved, and I didn't know about it until I got an email, and I went to look this house up, and there wasn't even on the map yet. So, and he tried to get me on that here too, because it was a brand new house. So he moved into a brand new house. Then I learned that he had just gotten married, and then I learned that he had just had a baby. So my son is being told that he's not allowed to tell me anything about his personal life at all whatsoever, which in my opinion, that's child abuse. If you're going to tell a child that he can't share his huge life-changing events, that he's got a new stepmom and he's got a new baby coming, then there's got to be something to really think about, telling a little boy to withhold information from his mom. So they moved out of the, further away. And then when I was getting ready to move, I let my attorney know, and she began the paperwork as she should have. But it never got before the judge because of COVID.
Oh, I see. Well, so I want to get the timeline straight just a little bit, just to give people a clearer picture of this, because it's the whole story is just rotten. So basically, after you left your ex, he stalked you, he raped you, you had filed, like, you went to therapy and everything for it. You have it all documented. And yet when you finally got the courage to tell police about it, even though you had it well documented with a therapist, they told you, oh, statute of limitations, we can't possibly prosecute, blah, 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 which is totally messed up. And I'm pretty sure against, if you have it documented, I don't think that it actually did go against the statute of limitations.
Right, because when I was pregnant with my son, I went into counseling, and I was counseling with a licensed clinician, and I was terrified, and I shared with her I was raped and that I was afraid of the father, and he caught wind of having a child with me about 3 months after my son was born, And then that's when he began pursuing me with his mission to alienate me from my son. And it began very early because all the court documents from the beginning, he put in there a lot of lies to create someone that isn't me. But it never really went very far because it doesn't matter how much you beat a parent up, you would think they still have rights. So he had rights as a father, I had rights as a mother, yet that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted to continue to strip my rights, and he wanted to continue being that person to try and continue to deformate my character. But in hindsight, he's been doing a lot of things that are illegal and allowed to do so. For example, he assaulted me when I was pregnant with my now husband's son. He's now 8 years old. I was expecting. I was 9 months, and he assaulted me. He went to jail, but the state attorney emailed me and said, "We're sorry, but we don't have enough to prosecute this case. We know that you're a victim." But there's too many holes in the case because, in their opinion, the way he assaulted me wouldn't fly. So I'm very pregnant, which caused me to go into labor. And he was angry about shoes that I sent my son in. So he drove by and he holed them at me, threw them at me as hard as he could. And if you throw a shoe at someone at the right angle, it's going to leave a pretty hefty bruise.
Right.
And if you do it at a good enough angle when a woman's expecting a baby, you can cause her to go into labor. And that's what happened. But because
not to mention, like, I'm pretty sure, because you could have all this Black Lives Matter stuff going on, people getting mad over people not wearing masks, they're like tossing water at people, and because of all of that, I've discovered that even just tossing water at someone is considered assault in most states. So the fact that he threw a hard object at you, that totally should have counted.
Yeah, and I have pictures and bruises and hospitalization and labor and all of that. But it got thrown out. And not only that, he was responsible for giving my son medication that nearly killed my son. I have email tracks on that. Don't give it to him. He's allergic to it. I have voicemails from him threatening me. I have him giving him medicine and then sending him to my house, and then my son needing medical care immediately because of that. He's allergic to amoxicillin. So if you take amoxicillin, like he did, he had trouble breathing. His whole body swelled up like, a swarm of bees, and he was very sick, and I had to get him medical care. So he wasn't happy that I wasn't answering his calls because he didn't want me to get him medical care, because at this time he had sole decision making on medical, but not when he was in my care, right? So in my care, I make my own decisions, but he didn't like that. So I ignored his calls, and then the police show up at my house. And they get a physical version, they see my son, and I explain why he looks the way he does, and they call DCF. And I'm thinking, okay, finally justice. Nothing happened as a result. Father was never, punished or, investigated. It was just that I didn't know any better. So my son had to go to the ER. He had to go to the doctor because we started at the doctor, and then we worked our way into the ER because he was progressively getting worse. So there's this huge track record with Dad, yet never has that ever been discussed in open court, ever. It's only been an attack on me.
I mean, knowing all of these details, it just makes me feel like this judge has a vendetta when it comes to, like, pushing the whole mask mandate thing and all, like, pushing the vaccine. Like, he's got very strong opinions about how he feels about this, and so something about your post triggered him, and he's punishing you for a Facebook post is basically what this is.
Honestly, I think it goes a little deeper than that. I've noticed that it's just women in general. I'm a woman. I was exercising my Second Amendment, and I was in a building by myself. I was by myself. I was in a waiting room because they were only letting one person in at a time, right? So he, and I believe the attorney has one personally, because she also, for whatever reason, I don't know what her personal life was, but she lost the ability to see her kids, and she had to have supervised visits. And she is a relative to my son's father. So she's trying to stick it to me, and so was the judge. So they just gave me an impossible expectation. It's one thing to say you have to wear a mask when you see your son. I could comply with that. That's something I can accept. However,
Yeah.
a vaccine, which is something that hasn't been developed yet, or we don't know when will be developed, or we don't even know how it's going to affect us when we do take it because of how long it takes to develop this vaccine, is absolutely ludicrous, and it's unconstitutional.
We don't know if it's going to be safe. We don't know how long it's going to take to develop. It's crazy to hinge your ability to see your son off of this, off of an unknown, like a
Correct.
complete unknown.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm really, it was really hard for me initially to go public with this because I really don't like airing out my dirty laundry. I really like to come across as I am, a strong mother with a great family that is in love with her family. Yet I felt like I really needed to have this voice for my son and for my family in order to have that justice that we have spent 14 years trying to achieve. And this is just one incident out of them all, but this is definitely the one that is proving my case that there's been this vendetta and that there's been this impossible agenda to remove my ability to parent my son. In fact, there's emails that say that, you're losing your son. You can't parent him. You're a psychopath. You're this, you're that. I'm not a psychopath. I don't have mental health issues.
You wouldn't even be able to get a license to carry if you had any of that on your right. So you're definitely, you're mentally stable. You went to a therapist. The therapist said that you were mentally stable. So he's just making it's total narcissistic behavior, and apparently this judge is eating it up.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on, and I want to make sure we don't run out of time before I wrap this up, because I think I only have a half hour to record. But you are a strong mother, and you do love your family, and coming out about this just makes you all the stronger in my book. So thank you so much for coming on. And we actually have a group that we're creating to kind of raise awareness about this and try and get you the help that you need, and it's called Liberating Logan. Your friend is the one who set that up for you. So if you guys want to find that group, Liberating Logan, on Facebook, we're going to try and get you the help that you need to get your son back.
I just want to say thank you for reaching out and taking the time and helping our family. This is something that obviously I can't put into words. I'm very grateful and very humble to have this opportunity, and to, honestly, this isn't about bashing anybody as much as, they deserve it, especially, the wrong that's been done. This is more about, listen, there's been a lot of injustice here. My voice has never been heard or taken seriously. At the end of the day, I will do whatever it takes to see my son. Yet, do I really need to inject poison into my body that might kill me to see my son? Is he not going to have a mother after that? Because I don't know what this, I call it poison only because it hasn't been tested yet. And there's people dying from the test right now, right? Have you seen that? Like, they're doing.
Right. They just halted one of the tests because of adverse reactions. It was serious enough to halt the test. So, and
that's what I'm scared of. And don't get me wrong, like, I'll take it, right? Yet I'm being forced to take it. See, there's that whole, like, human rights thing, right? Like, I'm being told that I am mandated to take a vaccine to see my son again, which, shouldn't that be my choice? Isn't this America? Don't we have a constitution? Don't we have why America of the free? Because we're allowed to make these decisions.
They shouldn't be, per the Constitution, they should not be allowed to mandate any medical treatments. I mean, that's what we have the Nuremberg Code for, right?
There you go.
The Nuremberg Code because of what happened in Nazi Germany, where they were doing medical tests on children, on people against their will. And I mean, the fact that this is, they should not be able to mandate any kind of a medical procedure on anybody, And if it's a great product and it actually works and it actually saves lives, you wouldn't have to mandate it, right? people would they'd get it because it's a great product. And product consumer rights is another one, which is a part of our Constitution. Like, they cannot force you to buy a product or participate in using a product.
Oh,
So,
speaking of, sorry to cut you off, but speaking of buying, he also wants me to pay for supervised visits, right? So
yeah.
I'm such a threat because of a picture. The man's never met me. It doesn't know anything about me. He's making an assumption, and he's making me pay to see my son. So not only do I have to put my life on the line,
Yeah.
I have to pay for it too. I'm just like, how did this happen? Like, how is this even really happening? Because like I said, I'm being forced to do something. I want to have a choice, and that's really hard to put before a mother. It's like, if a car's coming to run you over to save your son, you're going to jump before that car, right?
Right.
But why would you test a mother so far? Why would you put that stipulation on her, knowing that she's fighting so hard to see her child? She's driving 15 hours. She's going to court. She's calling the police. She's doing whatever she can just to know that he's okay. But she's not allowed to do so anymore unless she gets a vaccine, period. And that's why I just want you to know that I really, really appreciate you helping me have a voice and having my son have a voice, because we wouldn't be able to get this far if you didn't do this for our family, and we appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. I'm really passionate about justice and seeing justice served, and we have such a broken system. And so if speaking out about these things can help fix that in some way, then even if it's just for one person, then I feel like,
I hope so. And I hope for this other mother too. I really do. Because if he's done it to 2 women, imagine how many more are going to fall victim to his ruling, because everyone snaps pictures all the time. What if they don't have a timestamp on it and they just want to be facetious and say, oh, she wasn't wearing a mask with her kids? Because he's already got that mindset, he's taking away their rights. So
yeah, and they're setting a very dangerous precedence here as well for everybody else. So, I mean, if they get away with doing this too many times, that precedent has been set, and they'll just start ripping people out of homes for this whole mask issue, and that's not okay.
Right.
So, well, thank you again for coming on with me. Again, if you guys are interested in learning more about this story or how you can help Melanie try and get her child or visitation rights back with her son, join that group Liberating Logan on Facebook. I will put a link in the description or in a pinned comment depending on where you guys are watching this from. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you.
Good night.